Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest. I'm here with Angela Romero. She is a Senior Environmental Engineer for Stanley Consultants, and she is also one of our 2021 WWD Young Pros. As you've likely no doubt noticed, we've been featuring each of our Young Pros every Tuesday and Thursday in videos just like this. You can find them on Facebook and on our website and on YouTube. You can find links to all of that in the description below, but let's jump in to talk to Angela. So, Angela, thank you so much for being here and congratulations on being a young professional for 2021.
Thanks, and I'm glad to be here today with you.
So, I kind of always start with the same question here for the young professionals, kind of like their career path, what got them into water, all that kind of stuff. Could you talk a little bit about what your career path was like, what got you interested into the industry, and how did you progress to your current station now with Stanley Consultants?
Yeah, so growing up, I was always interested in science and excelled at math and was pretty creative. And so, um, when I was in high school, decided to pursue engineering as a career path. And so I applied and was accepted to the engineering college at Tulane University. And so I went down to New Orleans and did the my bachelor's program there. And initially, I joined the civil and environmental engineering program, and when it came time to register for classes sophomore year, it was kind of that was when you chose civil or environmental, and it was either a bunch of classes about steel and concrete or a bunch of classes that were more water focused. And so that was kind of when I really made that choice that environmental engineering was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to go the water route and the more natural systems route at that time. And so then I was doing my bachelor's program there, and right before the start of my senior year was when Hurricane Katrina hit. And so I spent a semester at the University of Houston taking classes there, and then came back for the last semester of my bachelor's program to Tulane University. And then after that semester, after I graduated, I had an opportunity to do an internship with one of my professors who owned a consulting firm in New Orleans, who was helping some of the debris cleanup. And so I was working with her on asbestos debris cleanup in the lower ninth ward. And so that was kind of one of my first experiences or forays into kind of what engineers do, what the consulting world is, and just some of those experiences for the first time. So then after that, my husband got a job offer up here in Iowa, and so we came up here, and I decided to get my master's at the University of Iowa, and so I joined the environmental engineering and science master's program there, and I did some teaching assistantships, and then also had a research stipend doing graduate research with my advisor. And so my research was um, investigating radium 226 in pipe scales and sediments from water distribution systems. So it was part of a larger project looking at inorganic contaminants and in distribution systems throughout the country. But so I was taking pipes, some that were 100 years old, and scraping all the built up corrosion off the inside and testing it. And so that I think gave me a lot of insight into the issues with aging infrastructure, what's really out there in the world for our water infrastructure, as well as the importance of those aspects in water quality beyond what we send into the system versus what people actually get at their homes. And kind of just opened my eyes to a lot of those issues. And so that kind of really led me into water and wastewater more than some of the other aspects of environmental engineering. Um, and then I also had a master's seminar, we had a weekly master's seminar during that program. And at one point, we had an engineer come in and speak, Becky Svatos from Stanley Consultants. And she spoke about her, just the consulting engineering world and the projects she was able to work on. And that really kind of cemented my interest in being a consulting engineer in water, wastewater. And so when I finished my program and graduated, Stanley Consultants had an opening, and I applied and was hired. And so I've been working with them for almost 12 years now, doing a variety of water and wastewater projects, everything from the really small community stuff to the very large and local and international, and just had a real lot of really great experiences.
That's it's really cool to hear about your how you transitioned through things, and it sounds like you got introduced to like that. I've some of the young professionals I've asked them kind of like what they would try and use to like bring younger people in, which is a question I'll be asking you later as
Yeah,
well. But the one of the core things that I hear from a lot of you is that shared purpose and showing that direct through line of like you did this thing and it's helped this person, right? Like you
yeah,
see this direct through line of like how impactful your work can be, and you got introduced to that really early with that internship in New Orleans, it sounds
yeah,
like. And like it's just like that was the spark, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that also the public health aspect of, the importance of public health in environmental engineering and water and wastewater in particular, and that really did stand out to me at that time with that internship. The responsibilities that an engineer doing hazardous waste collection has
Hmm.
in that process. So
Yeah.
that really did, I think, bring that home for me.
Now, in your survey responses to us, you also highlighted the importance of newer technologies and emerging technologies and how they can be incorporated into not only your work, but the work of utilities and operators and all of that. Could you talk a little bit about like why you feel those are so important and why you like to embrace those and where you kind of see that going?
Yeah, so I know, there's some of these technologies that some of the larger systems have been implementing for a while. And it's been a real struggle for smaller and more medium-sized utilities and communities to implement some of the data analytics and data integration stuff to help them operate. And so, one being in Iowa here, we're a very rural state. We have a lot of
Mhm.
small communities. And so I see that in particular as a challenge. There's these tools out there, but how do we make it work for these communities and smaller systems? And so that's really exciting, kind of, to me, just helping them figure that out. What can they leverage? How does that technology become usable and accessible to them? A lot of those types of systems have the one person with all the institutional knowledge, and going
Mhm.
forward, how do we transition away from that and get that into something that everybody in the system is able to leverage and use. So I think that's something that I see as really important and key to moving forward and continuing to evolve technology. Um, and I think that's another, way that pulling young people into the industry as well.
Mhm.
The more we've got that technology that younger people know and look for, will hopefully, bring some of that to bear for the systems that haven't been able to take advantage of it in the past.
Mhm. Most certainly. And I wanted to ask too, just are there certain technologies that excite you more than others? Like what most excites you about like the those emerging technologies? What aspects? Maybe it has to do with your job, or maybe it has to do with this data thing that you're talking about for utilities and stuff. But is there something in particular that really excites you about the future of technology for the industry?
So, I do a little bit of modeling, both water, wastewater, hydraulic modeling, and so that kind of brings up the digital twin concept. And while that's a little ways out there yet for some of these smaller systems that I'm talking about, I think that's very exciting,
Hmm.
being able to use a system like that to help optimize operations and make smarter decisions and work smarter, not harder, for these particularly challenged systems. So yeah, I think some of that digital
Hmm.
twin stuff is really cool.
Well, yeah, and like you said, there's oftentimes just the one person. And if they can, like you said, if they can work smarter rather than harder, they're gonna love it.
Right,
So,
right.
um, just kind of pivoting a little bit to talk a little more about like about your personal life and things that you do outside the office. You volunteer for some like local events, like the Jazz Festival, the Arts Festival are two things that you had mentioned um, in your survey responses. Why is volunteerism like that helps out your community? Why is that such an important thing to you?
So I think I've always enjoyed kind of the outdoor community music and art. That's been something that I have a lot of fond memories growing up of different things, different festivals and things that we attended as a family. And so when we moved to Iowa, those I really enjoyed those festivals before I ever got involved with them. And so just kind of a part of giving it back to everyone else and sharing it, and also just being involved and kind of getting the behind the scenes of those is always cool. And I've gotten to meet a few of the artists, or influence who gets brought in to perform and things like that. So it's kind of just a fun aspect. But I just really like being able to share that with the rest of the community and ensure that it continues on.
Hmm. The other thing that you mentioned was your background with like sewing and crafts and stuff like that, which
Yeah,
obviously arts festival
yeah.
and stuff. But you mentioned specifically that like you've designed costumes for yourself and your husband and your children for different events and stuff like that. Could you talk about what draws you into that arts and crafts stuff? Like how does that tie into like your relaxation away from all the engineering stuff that you're doing?
Well, so I think one aspect of it's very detail oriented, and as an engineer, I bring a lot of that way of thinking and doing things to sewing and crafts and design. I mean, it's a creative
Hmm.
process, so it's similar in that way, but also just very procedural. There's always spreadsheets and sketches. I think it helps with kind of that 2D to 3D visualization that
Hmm.
is important in my career as well. But I think it almost, the I've been sewing since I was a young child, and so it's almost like, oh, engineering fits into this detail oriented creativity I have, and can transfer those skills and interests. So it's just more of a fun way to use those skills, and then then work isn't always as fun.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that it is like I'm taking what I do for work, but I'm making it fun, and that's how I'm relaxing. Because I do the same thing, right? Like I'm doing a lot of reporting and writing, but then I'll do creative writing and stuff on
Okay,
the side, right? So like you use those skill sets because you have fun using them, and I think that's what
right.
makes then your career becomes fun as well because you enjoy using your skill set in really extreme ways.
Yeah, and I think it's a good balance so that you're not only using those career skills in a technical way that
Hmm.
feels sometimes obligatory, and you can do it for yourself,
Yeah,
for
because
something fun, and have something for yourself at the end.
yeah, because it can get really draining if it's always just so technical and so driven by that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes being able to separate that and have the fun stuff can be really really fun. I mean, it just in terms of like the costumes that you've designed, what's like one of your favorite things that you've actually done? Is there something that you're really really proud of that you've sewn?
So it's been a couple years now, but my couple Halloweens ago, my daughter was when she was 2 was Yoda, and my husband, some of it was his own creation, and I helped him, and he was Darth Vader, and I was, Madala. So, we've done the Star Wars pretty classic, and wandered around the neighborhood playing the Imperial March, and of course, everyone gets a kick out of that. So,
Yeah, I love that, and I'm sure that that was a really fun design to put together too for something that obviously you'd be a fan of it too. So,
yeah, yeah,
um,
and that was one for the kids that went in the dress up box, so that Yoda ears get pulled out.
yeah,
Cape.
yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, that's really cool. But I wanted to get to our last question here, and this is one like I mentioned at the top, kind of at the top, that I've been asking all the young professionals about this. We've been to know we know about this workforce issue that there's a lot of people in the water industry who are at the age where they are thinking about retirement or are retiring, and we need to fill up this pipeline of professionals who can fill in those slots, who can pull down that legacy knowledge and retain it and bring it forward. So the question to you is, how would you cater to and grab the interests of the next generation of water workers?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned something before about kind of the helping people aspect of things. And I think, really highlighting how in careers in the water wastewater industry really do help people. They're really about public health and maintaining our standard of living. I think that's a really great way to get more people involved, because there are so many people who do just, they want to help in some way or another. They want to use their skills to benefit people. Um, and I think also, like I mentioned, with technology, as that gets more and more implemented, I think some of those roles are seem more accessible and reachable to younger people who are used to implementing and utilizing technology for so much. Um, and I think also, as climate change issues become kind of more talked about, more in public sphere and prevalent, that's going to bring water issues along with it.
Hmm.
And so people just, gaining awareness of the importance of water and what the water cycle is, and what that means to our day-to-day lives.
Hmm.
I think those are really good ways to engage young people and get them interested earlier on, to kind of spark that
Hmm.
drive for the water industry.
Yeah, give them that same spark that you had, right?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and the element that like the technology thing is a big thing because that there is a sense of familiarity for those for younger generations because they've known are
right.
these technologies, right? So it certainly would make it more exciting for them and like you had mentioned, that shared purpose, knowing that direct through line, huge,
Hmm.
gigantic. So well, thank you so much, Angela. It's been
Yeah,
great talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better and to get your personality out there and whatnot. And for everyone who's watching, we have a link to the write up for the young professionals below. You can check that out. It has all of our young professionals in it. And make sure that you check back on us every Tuesday and Thursday on our Facebook page to get new videos. You can also find them on our website and YouTube. And Angela, thanks once again. We really appreciate you taking the time.
yeah. Thanks, Bob.